Do you see the
I see the
PowerPoint?
yep. Well, no, I see the Power BI screen with the all of the graphs.
All right, let me see if I can switch to the other screen. Now you should see the other screen, right?
Yep, I see it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke, and thank you for the GSI team for the opportunity to share a webinar with you guys today. Again, the title of the webinar, Got Power BI for JD Edwards, right? So we'll speak a little bit more about what that's all about, but a little brief overview about our company. I'm the founder of the company. We've been around since 2002. And unlike some other reporting and BI products out there in the JD Edwards space where they've built a homegrown reporting or BI application, we've taken a little bit of a different approach at Preferred Strategies. We like to leverage the market leaders in BI, let them use and build out BI to the best that they can, but bridge the gap back to JD Edwards. And that's really what Preferred Strategies delivers, is what we call our QuickLaunch. It's that bridge between market leading BI technologies like Power BI and ERPs that are fairly complex like JD Edwards. So that's what we are providing. We also provide a suite of services around that, from installation, getting everything mapped and configured to your environment, as well as ongoing consulting as you need it, or strategy based on where you are today, where you want to go as it relates to the future of analytics there. We do look at all of our relationships, not just as our partners at GSI, but also with our customers as a partnership as well. So we kind of consider ourselves like the office next door, where we're really just a phone call away, when you need help getting through an obstacle that you may be encountering. So if you're not familiar with the Gartner Magic Quadrant, this is kind of a lay of the land of, this just came out in 2019. So every year Gartner analyzes business intelligence technologies, and there's certain requirements to get in to the analysis. But you can see here the goal is to be as far up in the upper right-hand corner of the leaders quadrant. And there's only 4 vendors there right now. Microsoft sitting out there in pole position, Tableau, Click, and ThoughtSpot, who just came on this year. But considered as traditional BI was the legacy, the business objects, the Cognoses, MicroStrategies, the Oracle business intelligence applications, more of an end-to-end BI platform that was really IT driven. The idea of where Gartner is analyzing these technologies today is really for the business user. So it's much more of we're only looking at technologies on this quadrant for their data visualization, business user driven type solutions. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't IT involvement or IT enabled, but for the most part, if you're not able to get this in the hands of the business, then it's not something that could be considered as, they got Power BI. This is where we see the future of BI, right? So Microsoft has made it very easy to get Power BI in the hands of users. One, it's free. You can go out there to the desk if you want on the desktop, just like you can have Excel on your desktop or Word. You can go to powerbi.com and go download the desktop, and anybody can use it for free on the desktop, right? So I think if you want to then share that and collaborate with executives or managers and share content and dynamically have it linked to data wherever it's at, you can publish this to the cloud. It's either part of your Office 365 license, or it's something as little as $10 per user per month, depending on how you want to share content there. But I think what we're seeing is the next few years, when people just say BI, it's going to be assumed, just like today, if you say spreadsheet, it's almost assumed Excel. When you say BI, it's going to be assumed Power BI. Right? I think that's what we're seeing as this trend shift in the market. So what are we doing? And we're going to spend most of our time here today hands-on in the show and tell of how you can actually use the solutions and build reports and dashboards. But what's sitting behind the scenes, again, is JD Edwards data in all the demonstration that you'll see. So how are we translating that, making it more business user centric or business friendly? We're taking those, of the thousands of JD Edwards tables for the 15 modules of JD Edwards that we support, we're only touching about 150 of those 4,000 tables, right? We're going to translate the table name. So instead of seeing cryptic tables like FO101, you'll see address, or MCMCU, you'll say business unit for the fields. The dates, the decimals, the subledgers, the user-defined codes will be, again, relabeled based on your data dictionary and so on. We also do something that's a little bit unique here in the calendar. Some customers have a variety of different calendars. It's always easiest if you're on a January through December with no craziness to your calendar, but even if you're on January through December on a 445, right, your period end dates vary, right? And so what we're doing is we're based on your multiple fiscal calendars you might have, we build that out. And that's one of the things that when you see in the demonstration, year to date, year over year, month to date, quarter to date, it's all based on that logic. And we also can restate from one calendar to another. So what's covered here is a few different layers. And so we're going to focus most of our time in Power BI. We will show a couple other things just to help you understand how holistically you can leverage the model throughout the organization for other use cases outside of Power BI per se, and the visual representation of data. But if we look on the start on the left here, the first column, step one, we call data preparation. So this is where we're translating that JD Edwards data. We can do this right on top of your JD Edwards data, sitting on an iSeries, sitting on an Oracle database, sitting on SQL Server, and we load that into the middle, which is, we call it a data model. And the terminology within Microsoft is considered an analysis services tabular model. And so we basically store all that data coming from JD Edwards in this in-memory model. And in that model, we have different flavors of the data that were called perspectives. So each module or subject area, so there'll be a general ledger perspective, a sales perspective, purchasing, inventory, AP, AR, and so on. And within each perspective, it already have the related table that you might need to get some data. So it might have, in the case of GL, the account table to go get your object account subsidiary, it might have the business unit, it might have the subledger, work order. Also the relationships to make those tables work, and the measures and KPIs. Gross profit, net income, variances, expenses, and so on. So we've got all that. We also build out hierarchies where applicable in different areas. So that's this model that becomes our governed single source of truth. And we can connect to that in Power BI. We'll demonstrate that with already prepackaged content. We'll also demonstrate that starting from scratch. So if you just download the Power BI desktop and want to connect it to some data, how does that work? And then we provide some sample reports as well, and we'll showcase some of those. For income statements and balance sheets, we do actually use Microsoft's reporting technology called reporting services with different use cases where these might apply. So we're going to dive in, and we're going to start the live demonstration. I'm going to log in to Power BI in the cloud, so their browser as, let's say, a CFO, and I'm going to analyze some data, and then we'll kind of get into some sales, and then we'll go through that as a sales, let's say sales manager, sales rep, and then we'll edit that report and show you how quickly you can kind of make changes to reports and then build new reports, new tabs within reports, and some of the new functionality that Microsoft's brought out. One thing that's the beauties of Power BI is that Microsoft's on a pretty aggressive monthly update schedule. And it's almost like a great joy when you get the note that, oh, there's a new update in Power BI. First thing you do, it's like, waking up Christmas morning and seeing what's under the tree kind of thing. It's every month there's something new. And some things, pretty compelling market leading technology that they're leading with. So again, I've logged in here. I'm in the cloud, logged into the Power BI site, right? As, let's say, and you authenticate, just put in your typically it's going to be your Active Directory credentials, but I'm in the cloud. all this data. So as I'm going to start clicking around, the data is sitting in a data model in our data center in California. So as I'm clicking in the cloud, click by click, it's going to pass a request back and forth, and I can kind of explain how that works. There's this kind of gateway and things of how you can connect data from on-premise to the cloud. But here's an example where, as a CFO, I've got some maybe key GL-related ratios that I want to analyze on a monthly basis. So maybe current ratio, AR turns, inventory turns, days payables, days receivables, and so on. We've got 17 of these GL-related ratios that are part of the model that we've identified from Risk Management Association. And for those in finance that might be on the call, that Risk Management Association analyzes financial operating statements and these GL-related financial ratios for companies in all sizes, all industries. So you can go there and pick your industry, and it'll come back and say, okay, here's how other companies in your same industry are doing on these specific ratios. So we said, let's make those same ratios available for JD Edwards customers. And if you want to compare yourself against the industry, you could do that as well. So here at KPIs, I can see if I'm trending green, that means I'm better than my target. And if I'm red, then maybe I should have a look. So if I drill down into the current ratio, it's going to take us down to, this is one of our sample Power BI reports on top of these GL-related ratios. Here I can see, again, how I'm doing right at the current period, as well as how I might be trending on this ratio over time. So I can see actually a couple months ago, I was actually doing better than my target, and now I'm doing worse. We've also plotted maybe the numerator and current ratio is really current assets divided by current liabilities. So we plotted those separately on the chart below, so you can kind of get a sense of, is my issue more coming from the assets to the liability side of the equation. So that's just a quick example. Now, everything you see throughout this entire thing, again, and we'll show you how we do that, and we'll do that together. But if I want to go back and maybe look at some of the other ratios, so if I go back to the glossary here and want to say, okay, how are we doing on AR turns, or maybe days receivables? How many days are we running on our days receivables? So if I click on that, but I am up from 38.7. So again, am I concerned? Potentially, maybe not. Okay. So this is all just an example, and there might be some managers that really, with some KPIs at a dashboard or high level, if everything's green, then they can sleep well and they can, get on and maybe focus on other priorities. But if they're not, then they can kind of take some action into, what needs some specific, of their time to focus on. So if I now go to another workspace, so in the Power BI cloud service, they have these different, what are called workspaces. So a workspace would be any different, it's like a folder on your network, right? You can kind of, manage and store different types of reports. Maybe you have an executive workspace, maybe you have a general ledger workspace, AR, AP. We've kind of broken these out as an example by subject area, but you could have these be however you want to organize your data. So if I go to sales, at each workspace, there'll be dashboards. There'll be some reports. There'll be workbooks if you want to publish some workbooks out there, data sets, and data flows. So if I go back to a dashboard and start from a dashboard, right, this is where you could pin elements in Power BI dashboard from a variety of different reports. So you might have 10 different sales reports, and you're picking pieces from each of those in this specific workspace and pinning them to the shared dashboard. Okay, so if I want to then drill down from the dashboard, kind of like we did in the KPI, I can drill down to this report. So now if I open this up and I've got the, this report, so I've got, this is an example, this is our sample sales Power BI report that we go in and modify this for each customer, right? So this would be towards, and as we get to most of these tabs that you'll see, there's like 10 or 15 tabs at the bottom of this report, and we'll kind of click through these so you get a sense of what's there. But the first few tabs is sense of, by having some imagery, drawing their attention to the data. Other times we just delete these tabs and just go straight to the charts, bar charts and pie charts and waterfall charts and so on. So what I'm looking at here is in this sample company, maybe we've got everything rolling up by mobile, televisions and home theater, computing and appliances. So those might be my categories at the highest level. I'm looking at month to date for 2019 period 8, right? So this is basically my month to date %. If you actually do any type of, standard unit of measure for, maybe you convert all your quantities to cases. The sales and gross profit seem to work well for the demonstration. So if I switch this to quarter date, it's going to recalculate based on quarter to date or year to date. And if I was switching from period 8 to period 9, it's going to recalculate. So what's happening is, in the model, we've created these calculations that are dynamic, and they recalculate based on what the user input is doing with these different, are called slicers. Okay, so when I'm looking at this by year to date through period 9, mobile, I can see I'm better than prior year, right? So, that's great. Television, home theaters, I'm better. Computing, I'm better, but appliances, I'm worse, right? So I can see I'm about $500,000 worse in sales. Let's drill down on appliances, and it might take us to the next tier of the report that says, okay, now I can see the breakdown of my appliances and say, where do I want to focus next, right? I can see I'm slightly behind in washers. Let's drill down in washers. And eventually it just takes us to one of our, standard report here, where it's now just true Power BI visuals, and we're getting rid of the pictures as an example. So now, at this level, I've got, these are maybe, it's like on a customer tab, and you could, again, you've got 10 different tabs here. You take this as a starting point, but, we can you take this and completely change it. We're going to change some of this on the fly here together in a moment. But this is an example of maybe representing some of our sales data based on customer-related category codes. Maybe like things like channel or region or sales rep or something like that. So here, I can see my sales by retail. If I go ahead and select one of these, you notice it's going to highlight to the right. So it kind of gives me a sense of that. Then I can also go over here, look at my sales by region. I can see that I'm slightly behind prior year in Central. So the first question when you're looking at visualizing data is why, right? Why am I slightly behind in Central? Let's find out. So I can right-click, choose drill down. And now it's going to take me to the next level. In this case, I can see Robert O'Neill is actually better than prior year. So it's not Robert O'Neill's fault. And not that we'd fault anybody for this, but it looks like Jason Lee is slightly behind. Let's drill down on Jason Lee and find out maybe what customers Jason Lee has that are resulting in this. Right, so it's not Newegg, but we've got some others, Hoppy's Electronics, where he's far behind, as well as some of these others. So this is where we can drill down to the products, the SKU. This is an example in sales. We're pulling down to the most granular detail that you get in the sales. So we're blending your sales, open orders, the 4211 and the 42119 together. So it gives you kind of a total view of my open and closed sales transactions. Go to the next tab down here, maybe looking at product sales, right? So now we can we've done some other things to showcase. I go up here to this heat map and mouse over it. We've got some tooltips, right? Which is kind of neat because the visualization might represent one piece of information, which is maybe sales amount. But when I mouse over that, I can actually see, here's my gross profit, here's my prior year, here's my gross profit margin %, and this is on the same each one. So it's just a nice way for users to kind of get at some data. But you might say, okay, well, what if I want all that data just more represented in a data table instead of a visual, right? So you can go up here and choose show data. So now it's going to take that same data as a representation in a data table instead of a chart. Come back, and maybe down here you can also go and choose, I want to export this data. All right, so we can go ahead and choose export, summarize data, underlying data, what format do I want to send it to, and then I could basically have that in Excel. Now I'll show you in Excel how you can kind of get more dynamic interactivity with the same type of data in pivot tables in Excel before we piece by piece throughout the report. Here's an example. Maybe we're looking at geography, and our sample data here is in Northeast or West, or I can even look at, a specific sales rep. I can say multiple of these. So if I choose Jason Lee again, it's just his territory, and pick on how just his mobile sales. right? Or I can actually pick on his mobile sales, but mobile sales for everybody, not just Jason Lee, and see that spread across. So these are now, we're showcasing some additional slicers that might be based on certain dimensions. We can then carry those forward to maybe here's looking at a sales trend, right? So now we're looking at this as our total trend. We can kind of see here that we see. So it's what months I did better and what months I did worse, right? So we can then look at this again, which is nice if you think about what's happening here is these are one-page views of the data. With these slicers, it creates these dynamic filters. So in a traditional report, you run a JD Edwards report from the system, or you're running Cognos or Business Objects in a Crystal report, this one page to get all the breakdowns for all channels and regions and sales reps and product groups might have been a 150-page report. And now just by clicking on the different slicers, I want to say, what's my trend or my sales by appliances, right? What about appliances only in central region, right? So by just selecting these, it creates these grouping of filters. Or if I'm going to look at central and east combined, right? So this is just a way to kind of get real quick access to the data. And if we carry forward here, central's left, we can get in and say, okay, here's maybe some KPIs where we've got, and what we like about when you're going to analyze some of these KPIs, central, everything's red. Let me go ahead and click off of that and see is that you get this different time you can combine. So month to date, quarter to date, year to date, sales, gross profit, and percent. So when you have that combination of time as well as the different KPIs or measures, it helps tell the story, right? For instance, here at the consolidated level, my year-to-date sales are up, but my gross profit dollars are down, right? And my gross profit percent is slightly down as well. So again, by just clicking around, it just kind of reshuffles that. So that's another example of looking at some KPIs. We're getting a lot of customers really liking these variance, these waterfall charts, and to analyze variances. So in our model, we provide some, sales and gross profit variance type calcs, where we can see here, this is month to date. I'm going to flip it to year to date. So this actually does is, it's looking at our sales variance year over year. In this case, it'd be year to date through. So if I wanted to drill down and find out why Robin O'Neill is doing so great, I could do that. Or if I want to find out why David Williams is actually in red, I can do that as well. So I drill down on David Williams. Now, again, I can see customer by customer within that, how is that good? I keep drilling down to the products and so on, right? Or I can go up here and say, okay, what if I wanted to drill down all these to the next level, or it takes the two levels combined? Or I want to say, okay, I want to swap it out and say, okay, look at my total sales broken down by, oh, sorry, I think I missed that. So again, you have these ability to kind of just slice and dice the data and visualize it in different way you want. Here's another thing that's kind of, if you want, Alexa, a little bit, I'd say, cool factor here. So let's look at our sales. This is our sales reps, and this is maybe our sales trend. So if I want to see how month by month our sales reps are doing, year-to-date sales, it'll kind of walk through and it can kind of play this visual on the screen for you. So if I wanted them to pick on some sales reps, so maybe like, Paul Smith, I can see Paul Smith's month-by-month activity compared to maybe Andrew Short, right? And so this kind of allows you to kind of, see multiple of these together. Now, one thing I didn't show was that if I wanted to look back, let's go back here to product sales for a moment, and I see here I've got, sales. Let me go pick back on period 9 for a second. And I see I've got, 1 million, sales in televisions, right? I can go ahead and right click on this and drill through to the sales detail. So we actually already have the granular detail of all of those transactions. So because we're bringing down all the way to the 4211, 42119 into the model, you have that ability to kind of get down to that level of grain. So anything, the order numbers, order types, the dates, the order dates and geo dates and, and so on. Anything that's from those tables can be brought in. And then the last tab here, we've got just a, pivot table, kind of, or a matrix, they call it in Power BI. So we're just been walking through, maybe I'm a sales manager, maybe I'm walking through, and this is what I do every week, every month, or, when my boss reaches out and says, hey, how are you doing? But the idea is that some people will just be a consumer that's interacting with content that's already been created, and others will want to either change content, manage content, or create new content. So now let's kind of put a different hat on and say, okay, what if I'm a user that wants to make some changes to this report? So as a consumer, I might say, okay, there's this product sales tab, but I'd rather see this data maybe by channel and as a report. And this would be grayed out if I'm not granted rights to this. So you can control which users might have that ability to make changes. And there's a few different ways to kind of manage for consumers accessing data. But if I choose edit report, you'll notice a couple things just happened. I've got a couple new panes that have opened up on the right, the visualizations pane, the fields pane. And so now when I look at this, right, if I select this chart, it tells you, okay, this was the heat map that was selected. So now as a user, if I want to see this chart being something different, I can switch this to a donut, right? Maybe I want to switch it to an area map. Maybe I want to switch it to a bar chart, okay? So I can pick these different charts and it's just going to change it right there on the fly. Okay, the other thing is, if, okay, I want this to not be based on product subgroup, because right now it'll drill down from subgroup to the item. So let's go to our customer and maybe going in channel and drag that up. So now I can see this starting at channel, and then I can drill down from the channel to the subgroup, right? Or I can, as a user, drag this up, and then I can swap it. So now I can start from the subgroup and then maybe drill down to the channel. So by just dragging and dropping, right, this is how a user can quickly modify what's there. But let's take a look, because we kind of glossed over what's going on here on the right. Inside the sales model, this is our sales sample. So we had all these visuals on the page already defined with hierarchies and, you know, sample tooltips. Again, when I mouse over this, you'll see it's got the tooltip of all that because we've dragged in those different field elements. So if I look on the right, we've got like customer sold to, parent, shipped to. And if I mouse over, let's say the customer name, right, it'll pop up with a little tooltip, right, which is a little, okay, this is the lineage back to J.D. Edwards. Oh, that customer name is the F101 ABALPH. What's the customer? Document all these even at the table level, right? What tables are driving these as the primary? So we've got these different dimensions. And around sales, we've got branch company, our calendar. We've got the customer sold to, parent, shipped to, item, branch, lot, sales, and then under sales, we've got not only a bunch of fields here for, you know, order dates and order numbers and so on, but we've also got these pre-canned measures. So sales amount, in J.D. Edwards, you have pretty much a SDA EXP, which is your extended price. We take that and then we create all these time-based measures around that. What's my month-to-date sales, my quarter-to-date sales, year-to-date sales, total year sales, prior year? And these selected ones are dynamically changing based on what's there. Okay, so that's kind of all this logic that, you know, that you can start from. Let's go ahead and say, okay, instead of just changing a report here, now I could go in here, right-click on one of these pages, duplicate a page. It's like a spreadsheet. So Power BI could be like, oh, I've got a tab in my spreadsheet. Let's go ahead and just create a new worksheet from it, duplicate it, and then I can make some changes to that. So that's how easy it can be to make changes to existing reports. But if I hit the plus down here, it allows me to kind of build a whole new page. So in this case, let's say I want to build something from scratch. Now I could just drag something into the canvas. It's simple, just click on the value, drag into the canvas. There's also, you'll notice this new functionality that came in recently called Ask a Question. So with Ask a Question, if I double click out here in the canvas, so let me just take a second to turn it on. So if I double click, you can kind of see here, it says, okay, let's ask a question of our data. So let's say, okay, well, let's see, I want to look at sales amount. If I type in narrow down, okay, instead of just sales amount, all sales, it's going to say, okay, here's my year-to-date sales. And I want to see that by product group. Okay, so I just type in sales amount by product group. It's a based on what it finds into the right-hand visualizations panel. Okay, but that's kind of cool. So let's say we go ahead and that's good for that. I want to move this chart up a little bit, maybe resize it. Let's say down below, before I do that, let's say, okay, this is year to date. So before we kind of keep building other charts based on year to date, let's kind of showcase back to how we can control that. So if I go to the calendar on the right, here's where we can bring in maybe your period. Again, this could be based on your fiscal. And then we can even control different fiscal calendars, restate them on the fly. If I scroll down here, look at like 2019 period 8 or period 7 or period 9, right? It's going to calculate those. Okay. So I go back here below that and double click. Maybe here I want, sales amount. Let's we'll do a waterfall chart, like we showed you a variance on sales. So sales amount, right, versus PY year to date. Okay. And I want to look at that maybe by sales rep. Okay. And then I want to do this maybe and not show it as just a bar chart, but as a waterfall. Okay. So now I've got this chart, and now if I want to go ahead and make a change, again, I could go in and select maybe this drop down here and choose sort in descending order. And I actually want that to sort in descending order based on the amount. So again, just like we showed you before, we can kind of see which ones are doing that. So the last one here is let's go ahead and add maybe a scatter plot showing our sales amount from scratch. Let's go down to our sales amount year to date. And if I grab this sales amount and year to date, I just drag that in the canvas. Okay, so we want to see that. And I'm going to go up here to our customer. And I can grab, let's say, our customer region. So drag region, bring that into our axis here. And that's going to show us our sales by region. And then let's go and look at maybe by product within that. So go to item branch, and we can see here's our product. Okay. Right, maybe a product where I can see that as my legend. So this would be kind of a schedule. That's too much. So let's go, I can kind of click around and change the charts. Now, there's also this whole gallery out here. So if I click on this import a custom visual and I go to the marketplace, there's this, you can see out here, it's like your iPhone, all these custom visuals that people have built out. So that's how Power BI, again, is taking over the world when it comes to BI, is it just, people are building all these things every day, okay? So you can go ahead and import one of those. In this case, I've already done that with this narratives visual. So what this narratives visual is going to allow me to do is it's going to mine the data by region and product and sales, and it's going to write a narrative for us, okay? So it says, okay, let's write the narrative. And again, by default will be in paragraph form. We can go up here to our narratives, maybe turn this into a bulleted list, okay? And then we can also tailor this narrative, because right now it says, okay, for central, we've got, sales amount is 1.4 million across all 34 subcategories. Well, what's a subcategory? We actually want to relabel this to what we brought into our chart. So region, and plural would be regions, and then we've got products. So products, and then products. Okay, and then maybe we go up here to our characterizations, look at our sales amount. What's sales? Is that money or percent? It's money. A lot of that is good. Right, so you can kind of tailor the narrative, and then you can see here, now it's going to say, okay, for central, total sales are 1.4 million across 34 products, representing 37% of the total sales across all 4 regions. Right, in Northeast, sales were, so you can kind of distribution range of 7,000 sound bars to 181,000. So it's going to just mine the data, find some outliers, but it's interactive. So if I go over on the left and select my TV and home theater, it's going to rewrite that narrative just focusing on TV and home theater, right, or mobile. Right, so this is kind of, a kind of cool thing you could do. And the other thing is, I built out this report. Let's say I want to publish this back. I could take this or pin this visual to the desktop, right, or to the dashboard that's there. So I can pin visual, select the dashboard, maybe I want to pin this, right, and then I go back to the dashboard. That would be available for me to see that there as well. Okay, so given the sake of time, there's a couple other things I want to show in Power BI, and then we can kind of dive into Excel real quick, and then get back to a couple of PowerPoints. So let me go just show one other thing, like on general ledger, because this is a big, it's also a different way to think about data. But if I look at, on the general ledger side, here's our GL sample. So what are the key elements? So if you think about a P&L or a balance sheet, right? There's, if you want it in traditional form, then you need to write a report. But if you want to look at that visually, what are some of the key metrics of a P&L? Revenue, gross profit, expenses, net income. Presentation of that. Here we've got maybe our actual. If I've got this as year to date through period 9, this calculation up here is going to be a year to date actuals. So compared to my year to date budget and my prior year total year actual, or year to date actual. So I can see how I'm doing. I'm red. This projected is actually taking year to date actuals plus the remaining months of budget. So if I hit my budget for the rest of the year, I'm going to end up at 9.7 million, right? Which is worse than my total year budget and worse than my prior year total year actuals. This is a waterfall chart. Unfortunately, I don't have any green on this one. Everything's red. But my variance here is $398,000 worse than my budget. Let's drill down on that. Maybe we've had this to be then broken down by object account, pick on an account, and we can now drill down and say, okay, what makes that the $285,000 of actual spend? And I can drill through to the transactions. And this is just like that GL. So it's almost like account ledger inquiry. In our GL, we're pulling account ledger inquiry, that level of data, but rolling it all the way up. So we can slice and dice. It's like having account ledger inquiry and JD Edwards on steroids. You want to slice and dice GL data any way you want, this is the way to do it, right? And if I choose edit report here, now I've got, again, in our GL model, we've got all the account, the business unit, the cat codes will be relabeled in those. We've also, because we're blending the GL and the balance file together, we can get things like address that, or asset, things that profit, net income, and all these different pre-canned measures go to actuals. So if you want to build a trial balance, you want to build a balance sheet, any measure you pretty much can think. We got about 500 measures around the GL in itself as already built here as an example. Okay. So other modules, maybe as an example, if I go up here like accounts payable, right, and look at our report here in accounts payable. So some of these and other modules might just have a few tabs, right, where we can kind of pick a date range or kind of look at our AP transactions. What makes up those details, and it kind of takes us to another tab that has all those details. So this is an example of just, at least in every module, there's a sample there. But let's go in and what if I wanted to start from scratch? So if I actually opened up Power BI Desktop, so you can go out there just to powerbi.com and choose download desktop if you haven't done it. And it basically is this free desktop interface that you can use. And if you want to start, you just get data. You can pull from data from a spreadsheet. If you want to tinker or a database, this is where most people start going, awry. But you can basically get data from anywhere. If you have Salesforce in the cloud or other, there's lots of different options out here in the data connectivity. But for me to connect to our model, I'm going to connect get data and choose analysis services. And now I'm going to put in SQL demo, which is the name of our BI server that's storing all of our cube in memory. I'm going to connect live, choose OK. And now we do separate HR payroll as a separate cube. And then all the other modules here. So we've got general ledger, job cost, sales, purchasing, inventory, work orders, assets, so we've got 20-something perspectives here for you. If I wanted, let's say, what are my open POs by supplier? If I choose purchase order detail and choose OK, it's now going to connect to just that perspective. So we've got this one in-memory cube or data model, and it's basically we have all the different flavors that you just saw all stored, and they share the supplier, the branch, the item branch. So now as a user, if I wanted to go in here and choose, okay, let's look at our supplier, bring in supplier name, and I'll go up here to our and for giggles, let's go ahead and turn this into maybe a bar chart. Maybe I want to look at my ordered amount, right? And I can bring this in and that. I can see them side by side, or we can actually have maybe one be a tooltip. All right, let's go back to a data table, right? So within the Power BI desktop, you can grab elements and drag and drop and change the visuals and just start building content. To publish this back, we can just hit publish and then publish it back to the cloud. And then it's basically anybody accessing the same information from the cloud or their iPhone. Thing a little bit more. So if I were to go in here, let's say I want to build a new quick measure. What if I filtered out here that allows me to start building some calc? So if I go down and say, let's do division, and I want to say purchase order detail, and I'm going to go to purchase order amount. I'm going to do amount open. I'm going to do amount open divided by ordered, and choose OK. So now it's created. It's probably going to drop it somewhere here, and I can rename this object, but I can just drag it in my canvas. And maybe I don't want that as decimal. Let's look at that as a percent. So I go to modeling, format that as a percent, and maybe I want it as a percent with no decimals, right? So we can kind of go ahead and tweak that. So now we've got all of a sudden this available kind of calculation that's there. Now someone else could go and then add that back. This is now a calculation that was created as part of this report, but someone could then add that back to the model if that was something they wanted to do. Okay. To show was those that do want to live in Excel. We love Excel. Everybody loves Excel. If I go in here and choose data and choose get data, now I can do from database, from analysis services again. So this same Power BI data set that we've been using all along, I can access here from Excel as well. So I'll choose SQL demo. I'm going to authenticate with that. And now we can pick on maybe, let's say we want to do an as of aging around AR. Right, so I can go pick out, I know I'm going to do an accounts receivable, choose accounts receivable, hit finish. So now it's going to do a dynamic pivot table. So again, all of those millions of rows of data in accounts receivable are stored. Oh boy, I don't know why it popped up so big on my screen here. So if we were to go in here and look at maybe customer, and I'll bring in a customer name, bring that to my rows. Normally in AR, you've got all these amounts, discount, gross, open. We've also created these aging amounts. So open based on GL date or invoice date or net due date. I can drag those down to values. Okay. To kind of see that sliced by a prior period. So go to our calendar aging, and now we can grab your period, maybe add that as a slicer. Now, if I go to the left, I can say, okay, let me go ahead and, look at this. I can go back and pick, let's say, go back to 2017, period 6. Right, it's going to recalculate. Now, if I can go back here and say, okay, well, what are the document numbers within these? I want to see, okay, what makes up that 953? Right, we can go back to the accounts receivable, maybe grab our document number, and just drag that below customer. So now it's a pivot table. So now I can see customer by customer. Right? So if I want to see Clearview Specialties, I can go and click on that and expand just the document numbers for that. Or I can pick on any one of these. Let's say what makes up this 446,000 in Continental Incorporated. I can right click on that and show details. So it's going to basically pull all the trends, because for accounts receivable, we've got all that detail sitting there in the behind the scenes in the model. So that's, you can use Excel on the front end, dynamically connected. So we govern same data. So my metrics have been defined in the model. The last thing here, before we wrap up a couple of PowerPoints and answer some questions, is those traditional income statements and balance sheets. So in this case, if you do have a need to say, we still want a balance sheet in its traditional form or income statement, these are some samples. Again, they're all built on the same model. So it's not like we have a bunch of business logic in all these different places. So people coming into a meeting with different information, it's all the same. So, you're going to get the same result, same analysis potentially of what the values are, the metrics are calculating in Power BI and Excel, or even reporting services here. So if I want to drill into this, say what makes up this inventory row, I can expand inventory. I'm going to break it down to maybe the account. So let's drill into 1401, pick on that account, get all the way down. What makes up the 70,000? Again, just like we've shown as drill downs all along, drill down to all those transaction details, right? So we've got, here's a balance sheet, go back to financial reports, maybe look at maybe an income statement, just another flavor, so we can kind of see maybe in our income statement, you know, looking actual versus budget, year over year, month to date or quarter to date. And do here, but now just like we did before, we can kind of do the same thing and expand employee expenses and see kind of some of the breakdown there. All right, so let's just wrap up, final few slides here. So what's the recipe for success, right? And we might sound a little biased here, but again, we've kind of witnessing, you know, a lot of customers reach out to us now out of, okay, we're doing a BI evaluation. We're picking these 5 vendors and we're going to see who does best. 90% of all of our interaction now with customers is we've already chosen Power BI. It's our corporate direction. It's what we want to do. We already have the licenses. That's already chosen, but we haven't been able to make it really work with JD Edwards yet, and we found you. So that's the most common today. So picking the right software is critical. Now, if you have other softwares on here, we obviously can help those as well, because some of our layers are just not, you know, we're agnostic to some degree on, you know, the application on the front end. So picking the right software, getting the right domain, you know, combining JD Edwards with your ERP. That doesn't mean that's where it ends. We constantly help customers get their non-JD Edwards data into the fold as well. You know, pre-built models, again, it's having a starting point that isn't, okay, I've got connected and all of a sudden I'm dealing with 4,000 tables and who knows what data looks like or how it relates or how to build the calcs and how to build measures. And so that's kind of why, you know, having a good starting point that's tested and true with hundreds of other customers, pre-built reports. So again, for each module that we have, we provide a sample report. It's intended to be a sample. Again, it is modified over your data, but it is something that you can have an immediate win by taking that with minutes of effort and changing, and go present it to your boss and say, hey, look at this. You know, this is with 10 minutes of my time what we've been able to do. Again, it's having that network of great partners like GSI, but also us as well as you build out content and you need help with on the consulting side as it relates to your BI strategies. We're just, like I said, a phone call away, office next door. And time to value. So we've heard this, our competition today is not, it's not us versus another tool. It's typically build versus buy, and people that have tried to build spend months and years and don't get very far, get frustrated, burn a lot of time and energy, and then they come and say, okay, we've already been there. How do we not do this again, right? Or we don't want to go there because we know what that is. We've done that in the past. So that's typically time to value, right? So within a matter of weeks, this will be kind of up and running. We have a view of, the different layers here, the views, ODS and EDW. That's 40% of the way down the path of success. Our tabular model, if you combine that with the back-end translations of JD Edwards, gets you about 75% of the way. The sample reports, we could rebuild a lot of those samples with our tabular model in literally 10, 15, 30 minutes a piece, right? Because so much work is going just to get the data and have it, calculating right and having it presentable to a user. That's the hard part. Building this reports, Power BI is, reporting for users will never be easier, but it's difficult if they have to start from scratch. So Power BI is great once you have a good data set. Without a good data set, it's just like any other BI tool, takes some time. That's why a lot of people might start with Power BI and they build a proof of concept on, let's build it from a spreadsheet. Right? So I've got a spreadsheet of data. Let me pull that into Power BI and start just showcasing, which is great for presenting to executives the value of visualization, right? The question becomes, okay, I want that updated every hour of every day. And again, implementation timeline for us, fully installed and configured in about 6 weeks. So I think, Brooke, I'm going to pass it back to you. I want to thank everybody again. I'm sure there might be a few questions. We'll answer those, but Brooke, it's back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam. That was great. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. That was great. Thank you so much for that presentation. Before we get into our question and answer section, I want to just move in to a couple of follow-up items. And our webcast today is part of our free ongoing educational webcast series for JD Edwards. And our upcoming lists our upcoming webcasts are currently listed on the screen. We are updating them every day, so please visit the link below and you can see our most up-to-date schedule. We provided an extensive free educational resource for JD Edwards community, including our weekly educational webcasts, our monthly newsletter called the GSI Insider, our online resource center where you can access on-demand webcasts, white papers, and so much more. We also offer on-site and virtual workshops. If you'd like to sign up for our weekly email reminders for upcoming webcasts, you can go to getgsi.com. And then you can select resources and events on the main menu and then click on JD Edwards and you'll be able to see the newsletters, webcasts, and other resources. All right, I see we already have several questions submitted, and I would just like to remind everyone that if you'd still like to submit a question, you can do so using the question panel in the GoToWebinar console window on the right side of your screen. And if you minimized your console earlier, please click the left-facing arrow key to redisplay. Okay, Adam. It looks like, let's see here. Our first question comes from Joe, and he said, what performance issues might be introduced in queries after or queries against live ERP tables?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing and everything that we demonstrated today, we called a direct connect where we're pulling from JD Edwards, but what we're actually doing is we're incrementally loading data from JD Edwards into our data model. So all the queries we were doing were only against that in-memory copy of that data that can be refreshed on whatever interval that we choose. We can talk about that. But so there isn't really any query directly against JD Edwards from the user perspective. Now, as we load the data, there are queries that may hit JD Edwards. What we find is that 75% of the time, it's mostly totally unnoticeable queries going on for the people monitoring the JD Edwards. If there is a known performance hit that you're seeing, that's where then moving to the next step would just say, okay, let's mirror the data off JD Edwards and put all of our queries over that. So that's the next step that we call our ODS, if that's known. But like I said, it's the majority of customers that do direct connect. They don't even, it's not even a blip on the radar for most. If it is, like I said, then we go to plan B, which is uploading it to something else. So typically performance isn't a problem.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our next question is from Craig, and he says, what is best practice run against live JDE instance or replicate data to a Power BI only database to report against? And he said, additionally, speaking to any additional challenge for a BlueStack JDE environment and building out the Power BI infrastructure. So it's kind of a long one. Do you want me to read the first part again?
Yeah, I think I'll take a stab and let me know if I missed it. So in our Direct Connect, we do support connectivity to iSeries, to Oracle, or SQL Server backend. So we can lay on the way that works in a Direct Connect. We put a suite of database views on top of that, and then we load that into our model. So what's best practice, I would say, is again, if the Direct Connect works fine, then go with that. You're not going to want to do what I would not encourage people to do is just start querying the JD Edwards and open that up to having 50 people building content, all running their own queries. And that's kind of with our approach. What we're doing is we're offloading that data to another location. But again, iSeries is a potential connectivity. Microsoft has a DB2 connector that can be leveraged in Power BI, but also within the analysis services tabular modeling. Data warehouses are, once you get into it, there's a lot of variables. So we have our customers of all different sizes. Some have thousands of rows in some of the bigger tables. Some have tens of thousands or millions or tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and some in case billions of rows of data. So based on a lot of those variables, would determine what is your best approach, as well as what's your hardware that you've got running. If you're on a JD Edwards World instance and you haven't upgraded your iSeries for 10, 15 years, and you've got lots of data, you might want to consider an ODS approach of moving that data offline to maybe another repository. The other question is about your cloud. Are you looking to go more in the cloud or more on-premise? We do have customers that run JD Edwards on-premise on an iSeries, an IBM, talking about BlueStack, and we mirror the data from on-premise into, like say, an Azure SQL database. So we're, in essence, just moving data consistently, basically replicating data, so within a matter of a few minutes behind transactions into the cloud. And then from the cloud, everything's being worked on from there, and that's where their data and their data model will reside. And we can do that in the cloud. That would be considered an ODS. We also can do a data warehouse in the cloud as well. So it's really, be happy to take that one offline if there's specific, more details, I'm sure, behind that question of their specific case.
Okay, great. A follow-up question from Craig. He said, is the JDE security model carried into the BI reporting tool?
So the answer is it can be, but it depends on what we're talking about security. So one of the things that is a checkbox in our pricing spreadsheet or our configuration is, do you want to enforce row security? So if you have JD Edwards company security or JD Edwards business unit security and you want that to be reflected as people are analyzing data in Power BI, yes, we can do that. So we've built out a whole security matrix, and we can feed that from your JD Edwards existing row security. Some customers have a mix, though, want to do a hybrid because they might have executives that they want to enforce some level of security as well, but those executives don't have a JD Edwards logon. So we can pull some security based on Active Directory, some from JD Edwards, or you can even maintain your own set of row security in a database table or a spreadsheet even, and we can use that as our source for what's going to control security. So, we also, by module, we can configure, modular security in the perspective. So if I should only see AP or AR, right, then I can be controlled into those specific areas as well. So another question that could have unique requirements if you have to take that one off too.
Okay, great. Just a comment from Alan. He said, awesome product. Thanks, Alan.
Oh, thank you.
Next question is from Ramesh, and he says, can I use Power BI with other databases like DB2 Oracle?
Yeah. So Power BI is agnostic to data. So when you download the desktop and you go to data sources, there's ODBC, OLEDB connectivity. You can pretty much virtually connect it to anything, right? You have to know what you're getting into when you do that. What we've done, again, is but yeah, it's as a tool itself. That's one of the beauties of BI. Why we've said it, it's part of the productivity suite in the future. Is if you want to use Power BI on top of Salesforce, right? Salesforce.com, or Power BI on top of Google Analytics if you're in the marketing department, or you pretty much, if you go, and they're building out added connectors all the time. But yeah, as far as database connectivity, SQL, Oracle, iSeries, you might have to, there's Microsoft has some connectors, but you also have, like in Oracle, you would use the Oracle client needs to be installed for you to be able to connect to the data as well. But yeah, you can. When you connect to it at JD Edwards, you're not going to see like you saw today. You can't just connect to JD Edwards and say, oh, okay, I want to connect to sales in JD Edwards, and it just, voila, sales is now readily available to you in seconds. It's basically years or months of effort.
Okay, great. Thank you. And our last question today is from Larry. And Larry said, is the model a real-time view of production data or a replicated view, example, data warehouse?
Yeah, so it's either one. So we can, again, pull directly from the JD Edwards transaction environment in production. And just when we load the model, it's pulling directly from JD Edwards and putting that in. We can also partition the data. So if we want to pull 10 years of data into the model, we could load all 10 years of data, and then let's say every hour we just want to go ahead and grab the updates from JD Edwards, we could have it just pull maybe the current year's worth of data. So we can partition those loads, and they can be pulled directly from JD Edwards. Again, a mirrored copy of JD Edwards or a data warehouse. We do have a packaged star schema data warehouse. But even with the data warehouse, we're still, feeding that data from the data warehouse into the tabular model, which is our in-memory data set. And tabular, I'm saying that term, when you build, if you open up Power BI, you download Power BI Desktop and start modeling data yourself, you're basically creating a desktop tabular model as part on your PC. Actually, if you look at the services running when you're doing that, it'll say analysis services tabular as a service on your desktop. So, we're either way, we're going to basically build that model. Most customers look at the in-memory tabular model as a virtual data warehouse. So, like I said, in our case, 50% of our customers go with the Direct Connect, 25% go with an operational data store or mirrored copy of JD Edwards, and another 25% might go with the data warehouse. But we always put the layer between the. Any others, Brooke?
No, that's it. Larry said thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for your questions, and thank you, Adam, for answering all those questions for us, and for your great presentation today. As a follow-up from today's webcast, we ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey when you exit, and you will be receiving an email with a link to our resource center. And after today's webcast, we will do a drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card, and anyone that attended the entire webcast will be eligible. And if you have any follow-up questions, please contact myself or Adam, and we will make sure that we'll get back to you with all of the questions that you may have. And I wanted to thank Adam again today for your great presentation and everybody for attending, and we hope that you have a great day.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.